Welcome to the Joy of Coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 354 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. It's so good to have you here. I hope you're having a great day. I hope my microphone isn't coming in too hot. Let me know if the sound is a bit loud. I'm afraid if you're in Matrix right now, watching the stream live, we don't have the bridge working to Twitch, and similarly, if you're watching this on Twitch live, we don't have the bridge working to Matrix, so I apologize. I'm going to be present in both chat rooms, though, and I'll try and mention any interesting traffic that's going on in there for both audiences. Well, welcome, everyone. Let's get started. I'll start by, as per usual, sharing my screen. Yeah, it's February 7th, 2024, episode 354. Standard preamble applies in that no plan survives breakfast. I think I know what's going to happen today. I think I know what I want to work on, but I don't know if that's what most of the stream is going to be about. We might get, rabbit holed on a particular problem or sidelined or distracted. Who knows? You're catching me doing my work like I'd normally do. I identified a nice chunk of work that I thought might be good for this stream. So that's what we're going to work on today. I'll talk about that in a second. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the agenda that we're looking at is something that you can get access to if you're interested, and you can follow the handy links that eventually appear. If you're watching this on Air Mozilla, it's over in the details section. If you're watching this on Diode.zone or YouTube, it's down in the video description. And if you're watching this on Twitch, then it's down in the channel details down below, or the stream details, I think is what they're called. So as this updates, as I add things like hello, you'll see this little spinny happen, and an update should be applied to the agenda, and if you reload the agenda, you should see that message show up. All right. Okris says the sound is good. That's fantastic. Thank you, Okris. So let's get right into things. What did I want to work on today? Well, first of all, a couple of updates. One, Windows Jump List is going through QA testing right now, and so far, no bugs. So I worked with our QA team to develop a battery of manual tests. Like we wrote some automated tests, but obviously we want to be able to make sure that the Windows Jump List works for real users as well as automation. So there's a manual step to testing the Windows Jump List backend. And so I worked with QA last week to sort of hash that all out. And they're in the midst of making sure that it works on Windows 10, Windows 11, various configurations therein with high contrast mode. There's a lot of conditions to consider. Our QA team is heroic when they do this sort of thing, and so they end up doing a lot of the legwork, I think, and making sure that the software that users eventually get when it hits release has been tested. It's a lot of work. So thank you very much to our QA team for doing that. So far, no bugs have been identified, no major show-stopping issues, nothing different from the prior Jump List, with the exception being that it's more performant. So that's the one thing. The second thing is that I was apparently mentioned in a podcast. So I have a friend who used to be my grad supervisor named Dr. Greg Wilson. If you're not familiar with that's not him. Greg Wilson, he's a computer scientist. Greg Wilson, computer scientist. So this fella here, Dr. Greg Wilson, he was my grad supervisor at the University of Toronto. There's a number of things you might know him from, but one of those things is he wrote a book called Beautiful Code, which I think was quite popular. Software Designed by Example is worth checking out if you've never seen this before. This is a really interesting free book that you can view on his website. Let me just drop that in here. And it goes through how to build tools that software developers use every day and maybe take for granted. Like, how does a unit testing framework work? How do we structure unit testing, test registration? It's like I just picked an example there. How does a style checker work? And it's not just a description of how it works. He goes through the steps of actually building it. If you've ever if you're familiar with the Nystrom book, Crafting Interpreters, I feel like this is the same sort of level and approach to learning as crafting interpreters, where it's like, let's actually learn by doing. And instead of focusing on a scripting language like Crafting Interpreters does, Greg focuses on lots of different things. Like, hey, here's what it means to write a debugger. Here's how would one even begin to write a debugger? Which I thought this was a really interesting book. You can read it for free, and if you'd rather have a physical copy, you can actually buy a physical printed copy, I believe. And as I understand it, proceeds go to charity. All proceeds go to charity. I don't exactly... it's Creative Commons, this book, and there's... I think there's a way of purchasing this book, like a physical copy. And it's worth checking out. So, if you don't know Greg, you may not have recognized him on a recent podcast. Oh man, I forget now what it was called. Let me just... Let me recall. Hold on. Someone was mentioning that I was in a podcast, and it was because Greg was being interviewed, and he was talking about the joy of coding. And I don't mean to bring that up merely to like toot my own horn about it, like, oh, like I was mentioned on a podcast, but also because I think the entire conversation was kind of interesting, and the podcast itself. I'd never heard of this podcast before. But Co-Recursive, I've now listened to a few episodes, and it's an interesting podcast. And Greg doesn't, I mentioned very, very briefly on practical skills somewhere in this area, but he talks about a lot of stuff. And, what it means to teach software development, what it's like to be a teacher of software development. Greg is a very practical teacher. Yes, he was a PhD professor at the University of Toronto, but he was very hands-on. And when he was teaching there, and it's worth listening to this podcast episode, I think, and hearing from him. He's one of my favorite thinkers. So there you go. So you can hear a small shout out to the joy of coding there, but more importantly, you can listen to Greg talk about important things. Okay, well that's those are the two updates. Let me actually indent these properly. So Greg Wilson, my grad supervisor, was recently interviewed, and he mentioned the joy of coding, and this is a good opportunity to learn more about Greg and his work and his philosophies. So check those out. Okay, what is the thing I wanted to look at today while we get down to work? Well, we have been in, I think you probably heard me mention this. I'm guessing there are a couple of past episodes, I don't know how many I've actually done, where we have been in the process of transitioning our software, the Firefox code base, from Mozilla-specific, proprietary, not proprietary, but a very, well, it is proprietary. There was no one else used it. It's not like it was closed source, but it was like a module system. Before JavaScript modules existed, before CommonJS, before Require, before AMD modules, before ES6 modules, there were JSMs. And Mozilla, generally, if you've seen them in the code tree, they'll start with some name followed by .jsm. And JSM stands for JavaScript module. And since that time, that was done before my time here. So we're talking late 2000s, early 2010s, where I guess that became available. And since that time, JavaScript modules have been standardized. Now, ECMAScript 6 modules have been around for a couple of years now, and they're available in Firefox in the code base. And so in order to sort of not have our JavaScript engineers have to maintain this ancient module loader system, so they can maintain a single module loader system, but also so that we on the front-end team can take advantage of maybe shared modules between our web properties and the browser code. There's suddenly it opens up a lot of possibilities for code reuse, as well as better tooling, because a lot of modern JavaScript tooling presumes support for ES6 modules because they're a standard now. So we suddenly unlock a lot of capabilities once we completely transition off of JSMs. And the good news is that they're almost all gone. We have this website called Are We ESMified Yet? I'll put a link to that in here. And you can see that since mid-2022, we were working on it. And as this blue line goes up, this sort of orange block here represents all of the old JSMs. This blue region represents all of the ESMs, the ECMAScript 6 modules. And you can see that there were a couple of big jumps, then some slow migration, and then another couple of big jumps. And now we're in this long tail. And the reason for this long tail is because there are certain parts of our code base where the conversion is actually trickier than you'd think. And today we're going to be looking at one of the tricky ones. And that's because some of the front-end code, in particular the new tab code base, as well as the code that powers About Welcome and something called AS Router, have a series of specialized tests. And the way those tests work is using a different framework. They use Karma, I think is what it's called. Karma, chai, mocha, something like that. Some kind of coffee. That's not to be confused with Mochi tests, which is what we generally use for the rest of the browser, front end at least. It uses a more modern JavaScript framework. It runs inside of a browser, but you know, if you've ever heard of like Mocha test, that's this thing. And then there's a thing called Karma test runner, which is what runs the tests. And the disadvantage of running there are a number of advantages. That there's a reason why that team decided to write tests in that way with that framework. But the disadvantage is that, you know, when you're running inside of the unprivileged environment of a web browser, and that's what Karma forces you to do, you have to run inside like web content. You have to mock out a bunch of the privilege that you know, the browser privilege code presumes to exist. Things like Chrome utils and being able to like you know, access the Places database. You have to mock a lot of that stuff out because it obviously doesn't exist for web content. And it also means that things like JSMs, which have historically not been, like, there's just been no availability for web content. Like Karma has no idea what a JSM is, neither does Mocha or Chai or any of those things, is that we have at build time, like when you run the tests, it does like a special build that transmutes. It uses Babel, I think, to like transmute our JSMs into common JS modules, which are then executed. It's quite arcane, but we're slowly moving away from all that because we're starting to use modern modules, which is great. And I am in the process of getting rid of this last block of modules, the AS router modules. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 of them. And if you take a look at RWESMified, the website here, that's the last 10 in the browser directory. So this is the stuff that the front-end team has more or less been responsible for. And there's only 10 left. So if we can figure out a way of closing those out, everyone, especially our JavaScript team, but our tooling teams, and people who want to share modules, they're all going to be happy. And we can get rid of a lot of the kludgy stuff that's been like sticking around to support JSMs. So this is the bulk of what remains. Like there are a couple left here for dev tools. There's 2 left for DOM, 1 left for services, and 1 left for toolkit. But if we can take out these 10, that's over half. That's half of what's left. So let's try and do that. And we're already at 98.68%. Maybe we can bump it up another percent point. That's the hope. Okay, so to be fully transparent, I've actually been working on this. I worked on this on Monday, and I reached a point where, you know, I've actually done the conversions, but I have a bunch of test failures. So what I'm going to do first, let me actually pump up my font so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. So those patches to do the conversion are here. Boop, 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 boop. And then I've got these sort of like work in progress fixes to fix some test failures. And that's very sloppy. I don't know if any of those things are going to stick around, but the rest of these are conceptually, they do the job of converting those 10 modules to ESMs. I've got 1 commit for each. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rebase this onto my most recent Central. Oh, actually they are rebased onto Central, so I don't need to rebase. I'm just going to check out this revision. But actually what I am going to do, I am going to pull from Central, and I'm going to rebase these changes on top of Central. And the reason for that is I think there was some recent ESMification done just yesterday or so. Like notice the number went from 23 JSMs to 20, so there have been some more conversions, and I want to make sure that I don't accidentally conflict with any of those changes. So let's pull and let's rebase. Okay, so it's rebasing. So far, no conflicts. That's very nice. Ocris is like, let's go for 20. Hey, why not? If we can do these AS router modules today, then let's see if we can spend the rest of the time working on the other 10, and maybe we'll go for 20. That's a cool idea. I like your attitude, Ocris. Okay, so there are a couple of things to note about what I had to do here. So here's how you run the AS router tests. There are a whole series of AS router tests. AS router is the component under which we are trying to convert the modules. And there are a series of test types. There's like the browser tests, and there's the unit tests. And the browser tests run with like full browser privilege. It's basically an instrumented version of Firefox. The unit tests, these are the ones that run inside of the Karma thing. And we got, let me get rid of these orig files because I think they're going to be confusing. Dot orig from browser components AS router test unit. Here, I think this is what I mean. And let's make sure that they're gone. Good. Okay, so these are the unit tests. Now, how do you run these unit tests? How many of them are there? There's like 3, 6, 8, 16, 17, 18. And then these are, I think, utilities. There may be more tests under here as well. But how we run them is we say mock, and, well, before I do that, I need to build. So let's do an artifact build. So this might take a second. Once I've done my build, let's try and run these tests. And I can tell you right from the get-go, we're probably going to have test failures. So while we're waiting for this build, I'm going to try and explain some of the things that Let's take a look at some of the patches, actually. Because a lot of them are fairly mechanical. Like, we have this tool called mock ESMify -- convert, which will do a lot of the conversion for you. Some of it we still need to do by hand, but it does a lot of the heavy lifting. And if we take a look at the, let's pull one of these out. Let's look at this one. You can see that, you know, a lot of it is just like renaming, you know, I've renamed this file. Like when we have ES6 modules, we, if they're privileged, we give them .sys.mjs as the extension. We move some of the ways that we load the modules. This is how we would load JSMs lazily. We transition those to the way we load ESMs lazily using define ES module getters. Here, this is an MJS, so we can just straight up use import instead of trying to like load the JSM using Chrome utils. We can just use like the static import, which is nice. Same here, static import, and ESMs are strict by default, so we don't need to use strict anymore. This is the actual conversion of the module. And there's not a whole lot that changes. It's like we change how we export things, like export the keyword is used instead of exported symbols, which is how JSMs used to work. So you'd export strings for the symbols that in the module are exported. So again, fairly mechanical. We change the name of the module, so we have to change how we package it. And then all of the places where we load it. That's it. But if we try and run the tests, is it done? Yeah, our build's done. Let's run the tests and see what happens. So this is how we run the AS router unit tests. We say mock npm, we invoke npm. This is how we have to do it. npm run, we're running an npm script. Testmc unit, that's the task we're going to run. The name of it, and then we give it the directory prefix of browser components AS router. This is how you do it. So what it's going to do is before it tries to run the test, it tries to like bundle them up using something called Webpack into a single file that it will run and run all the tests. And that is a choice. Webpack is not my favorite, primarily because of errors like this. Now we have to go through all of these errors and figure out what it's complaining about. And there are a lot of errors here. Like, what is going on? So let's go to the very first one. And it says, hey, I found this module identifier, resource modules AS router default config, and I don't know what the scheme is. Resource : / modules AS router. It's not handled by any of our plugins. And now I remember where I was when I let off, whenever I stopped working on this on Monday. And this is where things get a little. Now we're going to go into it. So brace yourselves. So as part of building the tests, like the Webpack building, let me pull up the folder here. There's a script with directives that sort of describes how to do that. It's called karma.mc.config.js, and there's a lot of directives in here and instructions on how to build and what to skip building, and there's like stuff in here related to coverage, because as part of this, coverage is calculated, test coverage. But one of these things that it does is here, a plugin is registered such that if we see resource URIs in import statements in MJS files, it rewrites them at packing time so that anything that starts with resource : / activity stream is replaced with, I think it's just replaced with the path new tab / something something. And I'm saying this out loud like I'm confident that that's the problem, but now that I think about it, I'm less. No. I am sure. So here's why this is suddenly broken. Is because this only applies to ESMs. This only works for ESMs, because we had a similar script down here that works for JSMs. And the way the JSM works is we have the script called Babel JSM to common JS. It doesn't just change the imports, it changes the entire module so that it's in the common JS format. And it replaces not only the activity stream one, but also resource : / modules AS router. So it accepts multiple pairs, like the regex of what you want to replace the import with, and like what you want to replace it with. And then another one, like multiple. You can do multiple tuples. The regex for the path that you want to match against, and then what you want to replace the selection with. And by when these were JSMs, resource : / modules AS router was replaced with // because the test is running. As I recall, the test is running inside of the test unit. No. It's running inside of the AAS router modules directory, and so it doesn't need like // AS router default config.sys.mjs will match where the file is actually located. It's very complicated. I'm not a big fan of this, but this is how it is. So what I would like to do, I think, is to update the resource URI plugin to also take multiples, to take multiple paths. Let's take a look and see how this works. The resource URI plugin, it's a very simple script. It takes a path as in its constructor, and then if it matches the URL that it finds for loading a resource matches, then it attempts to change the path name to use the directory name. So this is hard-coded to where resource URI plugin is, which is currently in the, I don't know if you can see that tooltip, inside of the new tab folder, which that's no good. We need this to be more adaptable. So what I'm going to do, I think, translate files for resource : / URIs, translating the URI to a path. I'm going to update the documentation here and say this plugin supports finding files with particular resource URIs, and translating the URI into a path, into a relative file system path, where the file may be found when running within the Karma Mocha test framework. So that is, I'm signaling my intent here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the signature who are all the places, where are all the places where this module is used? Hopefully not too many. So about welcome uses it, AS router uses it, new tab uses it. And it's used also when you're doing web packing. So I'm going to need to make sure that those all continue to work and that we satisfy those uses. New tab, about welcome, AS router. Okay. I think what I want to do is update this to be a series of regexes. And I'm going to update the documentation here to say that this is, I think I can do a type def to say what a thing is. Type, yeah. Maps regular expressions to maps regular expressions. What do I want to do here? Yeah, to things, to strings that should replace matches for those regular expressions. Maps, regular expressions representing resource load, resource URIs, strings. Okay, so type, and then I'm going to say, yeah, I'll use a map. Why not? Regex. Is that, do we have? I actually don't know if a map. Is a map the right structure here? Because like when we call this thing, paths regex. So regex. It's just like a key value. Like I think it should just be an object. It's probably fine. Type object. And then property. Yeah. Something like this. Type. Type def, type object, property, string, type. That's actually not what I wanted to do. I want to like, how do you represent that the keys are the interesting thing? Maybe I'll worry about the documentation later. I know what I'm trying to say. It's like, keys are the regexes. I'm going to say that to do. Keys are the regexes, values are the replacements. So I need to JS doc that. Okay. And then we read these in. And then instead of this one-time check, we're going to be looking at a URI. And what we're going to do is we're going to, for let regex in this resource path regexes regexes. And then we'll do, if it doesn't match regex, then we'll continue. Otherwise, we do this operation and we return. And if we never did this, we'll return true. Hello, Isam MM. What's up? Nice to have you. So we'll check the regex, and if we find it, then the path name will be dir name / path join. I think what we actually want to do is path join let const replacement equals this resource path regex's regex. I think that'll work. Now we just need to use all the we need to update the callers, I think. Just I want to make sure that this isn't too awkward to use. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to say resource path regexes is paths resource path regex. And I'm going to say that the value is there's a new tab tools, so we're going to replace it with, I think this, I think this is right, new tab lib, I think that's right. Or I think it's just maybe that. Let's see that. And then the other one is I want to replace AS router with // I think. Let's see if that works. Now immediately I notice a problem. I don't think I can use, yeah, I can't use those objects as keys, I guess, in an object literal. Makes sense. It's been a while since I've thought about this sort of thing. So instead I'm going to have it be an array, have it be an array of tuples. How would I do this? Why not? It mirrors the other one. The one for JSMs. Array of tuples. Tuples a bag. All right. So then we have to change our conception here. So it's like is to do array of regex string tuples. So when we go through these, we're going to say for regex replacement of I think that works. Destructuring. All right, let's see what it thinks of that. So it's very mad at me, and the reason is because well, some of these are actually new, I think. Yeah, we have a different error message. Our first error message is different, I think. Right? It's kind of difficult to tell. Let me put enough space and run it again. Yeah, what I'm looking for are those yellow markers for the last run here. So we've actually changed no such file or directory. Okay, so I think our pathing is wrong. No such file directory. Up, new tab, common actions. I wonder if I can do like this. Because I think we already do some aliasing. So let's see. Okay. Different error. Let's go through our errors. No such file directory, open modules, AS router. So this is different. So we fixed the new tab one. That's good. Now it's not finding the AS router one because it doesn't recognize open modules, AS router, AS router. No such file. So should this be like test 1 2 3? Like, is that showing up? Whoopsie daisy. I want to see if any of that stuff is going to show up in the output spew. Yeah, good. Back. Modules. This is a problem because where is that coming from? AS router, no such file directory. AS router default config.sys when trying to load what? Default config, no such file when an AS router parent. So it's matching on resource, but it's actually not replacing modules in AS router. It's just replacing this. Okay. Okay, then we have to change more about what's going on here. Placement, join URL path name. What if we don't do that part? What if we say just replacement? Is that, how does that get us closer? Okay. Let's go back. Okay, good. No such file or directory open. We just need the file name now. Or really what we just need to do is a replace. Resource data. Resource URL. Resource fragment. Path equals path name. Original path name. I want to replace. All right, how did this used to work? Oh, resource URI. So not quite. I actually want to do the replacement. So Babel, JSM to CommonJS. I think the way we did that is just, yeah, replace with. Or replace, file path, replace. So something like this. Path equal url.pathname.replace regex replacement. What's that like? And then resource. Maybe this is the resource. Resource equals resource. Path name. I think we are getting to the crux of it. Getting closer, getting closer. No such file directory /common/actions. Yes, okay, so that means we need to change this, I think. Wait, what? Module fail, module name and common actions. When loading asrouter.sys.mjs on line 51, it tries to load from activity stream /common. And I think what we should be saying is new tab, test 1, 2, 3. Hang on. I need to see where this is falling over. Is this even hitting the stuff that we just wrote? Thought it was. No, it is not. Calculated path name. Original URL, url.ref, calculated path name. All right. Let's see if we can trace through some of these replacements. Finally, printf debugging. Yeah, that's where it's at. I don't know how else to debug these build scripts because I can't see how one attaches a debugger. Original URL, resource modules. See, this is no good. This is no good. We, common. Okay, so I think I can fix the first one. Resource activity stream. Where's the replacement? URL, path name. Original URL. Okay, here's what I'm gonna say. I like that. Replacement was finally printf debugging. Yes, sir, Smurf D. Okay. Replacement was that. See, that's very interesting. I think I may have forgotten how path.replace works. String prototype.replace. Does it do it in In place, returns new on some matches the pattern replaced with one, some or all of the matches replaced by replace. So paragraph replace. I think my dog is cuter than your dog. Okay. Calculated path name is URL original path name URL.path name Okay, original path name is so it's already been truncated from something? Preferences. It's loading this. That's right, original URL. URL.ref. The path name is module/ASRouter. So I actually want to do the replacement on the URL, ref. I think. Calculate path name. That looks better. That looks better. Modules answer calculate path name. Yeah, okay, so now I can change our karma config here. Instead of using test123, I want the path to be, I think, /. And let's let it go. Okay, so still no, but I think we're inching closer here. No such file or directory. So is it supposed to be /modules? Is that where those things are? Not quite. Not quite. No such file or directory. /modules/ because yeah. All right. Closer. Closer. Not quite. Not quite. Well, come on. Scroll thumb. Okay. Lot of messages. Lot of messages. No such file directory. New tab common actions.sys.mjs. And that's in trying to calculate path name. Calculate path name. Original path name. Resource. Calculate path name. Yeah. What about the so it's having a hard time with actions. Where's actions? Here. So it finds resource activity stream, calculate path name, new tab /common/actions. It doesn't know what those are. Because where are actions.jsm? sys.mjs, new tab common actions. So maybe instead of new tab, it's supposed to be whoops, like that. Still no, but closer. Every step is a little bit closer. Every day is a winding road. Oh, different. Doesn't know about GRE modules. Okay, this is actually something I recognize. And something I know what to do with. This all looks right. Telemetry feed. So I actually think I know how to fix, I might know how to fix the rest of this. And it has to do with the fact that for GRE modules, warning, dependencies, plugins, not existing. Following invalid values have been reported. They are not. Oh, it doesn't like relative paths. Okay. New tab, resolve directory. So maybe that's what it wants. Pass join dirt. Like that. Still no. Still no. But closer, closer, closer. Still app constants. And I think like I said, I think I know what to do with those. What are these other messages? Modules, AS router, invalid dependencies. It still doesn't like the fact that we've got relative. Like I think it doesn't like the dot. So do you want this? Will this make you happy? // modules. Not quite. Oh, // module /. Yeah, now we're down to the GRE modules thing. Okay, okay. And services settings, remote settings. Okay, so app constants. How do we deal with that in AS router sys MJS? Well, the way I've been historically dealing with that is by just not loading them. I'll explain in a second. So on line 7, we're doing the static import of this thing. And this thing, when running in the test environment, is actually already mocked out. If you look at unit entry, which is like the environment that the tests, the Karma tests run in, there is already something called app constants that is mocked out and we should be using instead. But you can't overwrite this, or at least we don't have infrastructure right now to do this full overwrite. We can repath, but we can't just eliminate the import, or at least I don't know how to do it. So what we've been doing is taking advantage of the fact that Chrome Utils import is import ES module is a no-op in the Karma environment. And Let's see here. I've got like, yeah, this is an exact replica of what we want to do here. Now, it may also complain about XPCOM utils. Oh, there's another app constants. This one's in AS router targeting. I wonder why XPCOM utils is it's having a hard time. It's not having a hard time finding XPCOM utils. That might be worth finding out about. New tab utils. Just want to get to the point where this all runs. We're getting really close. There aren't too many errors left. App constants again. This time in onboarding message provider. And next is XPCOM. Okay, now it's having a hard time with XPCOM utils in AS router. .system.js. So I was right. It's having a hard time with that one too. I was probably just doing it in alphabetical order. Okay. AS router targeting. It's over here. Getting closer. Can you feel that we're getting closer? Because I can. Onboarding message provider. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Okay. CFR page actions. That's a new one. CFR page actions. Special message actions. Might as well do that as well. Well, why is it loading special message? I have my plugins. Special message actions. Is that in unit entry? Special message actions is not. That's interesting. So we might actually have to create a replacement for that one. XPCOM utils. This one's inside of Toolbar Panel Hub. Getting closer. One major error. Special message actions and remote settings. So this one, messaging system. Do we have some kind of like karma? No, AS router. Like a rewriting rule. Resource. Babel? No. Interesting. I wonder why, okay, well, who's loading it? AS router default config. And what? AS router default config. it doing it before? Special message actions. Oh, was a no op. So let's just do that. Not quite. Another special message actions. This one's an AS-Router default config. So we're making a huge mess, and we are going to have to clean this up, but I just want to get to the point where the tests run. Remote settings. AS-Router. Here in AS-Router.jsm. Yeah, we were doing this. Let's see if we can. There we go.
Hey, what happened?
So, we did it. Now, we made a huge mess. We made a huge mess. Our code base, like I was like tearing out cables, effectively. And we also haven't made sure that we've updated the other places where Resource URI plugin is used, and we should definitely do that. But we got it to a place where it works. So I'm actually going to amend the commit I have on top, which is like maybe fixes. I'm gonna call this like horrific fixes. That get AS-Router tests working. Okay. Right, I've got console statements that I need to get rid of. Good call. RSURL plugin. We're going to get rid of these. We're going to get rid of that. What was the other thing? Path assigned value but never used. That should be fixed now. I would like to make sure that, oh, mine. Oh, why was this bro? Oh, I guess this was used before. Don't need that anymore. Not only do we need to make sure that the tests work, we need to make sure that the bundling works. Right, plugin. It's used in bundling new tab. So let's make sure. All right, let's make sure the tests still work. Then we'll try bundling it, and then we'll try and update it for new tab and about welcome. And then we're going to go through the patch. We're going to start. We're going to start updating it. This is interesting that the coverage seems to have regressed somewhat. I wonder why that is. I'll have to look at that later. But let's try bundling. Run bundle, I think. That works, okay. No major differences. All right, let's also make sure that the AS-Router tests still work. The browser ones. Actually, I'm gonna do this in, can I do this in headless mode? I actually don't know if I can do these AS-Router ones in headless mode. What's this extra bolt for? Probably not important. Kinda. I'm running around with an axe. I'm gonna delegate a lot of this to my reviewers, but ultimately, I have a feeling that a lot of this stuff is temporary anyways. Like all of the resource rewriting and stuff, it's just because we're using those karma tests, and eventually we're going to move off of them. You know, I don't think we want to keep using this sort of mocked framework thing. I think slowly but surely we're going to be migrating off of them. So this is really just a kludge to get the module system ported properly, and then then we can think about the testing system. I'll leave that to the new tab team. I'm less concerned these days. Like the new tab team is kind of in control of the new tab code base for the most part, and they're starting to get staffed up again, which is good. I'm more concerned with ESMification across the tree as a whole. That's my concern right now, for the most part. All right, so tests are looking good. Okay, that's good. Now, the resource URL plugin stuff, where did we see it being used? About welcome. Let's do that one first. About welcome, karma, resource URI plugin. So we're going to change it to using an array. And it's going to be, or rather it's this, is x's regex, and then what did we use for AS router? Yeah, this is basically, I'm just going to copy that wholesale. Let's see whether or not the about welcome tests run now. Same dealio. Oh, that's bundling, sorry. Test, so bundling works, that's good. Test MC unit. Okay, no, explosions. Explosions in the dark. Oh, because it's bringing in AS router stuff. In AW screen utils, can't resolve AS router modules AS router.jsm. Oh, I need to update. I missed something. Code. Nope. I missed a rename. Code, browser components, about welcome, tests. This is still using JSM. Try that. Still not happy, and that's because why? Reading from modules AS router CFR doesn't know about it. Loading asrouter.sys.mjs from AW screen utils. So we also have to do a rewrite of modules AS router. Okay. Okay. Can do. To dot slash AS router slash modules. There we go. There we go. Okay. Now let's also run their browser tests. What do they have for tests? Browser and unit. So let's run their browser tests. In the meantime, I'm gonna check the room. I don't know how many people are watching the stream, but does anyone have any questions about what I just did or why I did it? Or to be clear, this was not the cheapest, or this was not the cleanest approach. It was a lot of like hack and slash with a machete. But what I'm going to do now that I've got something that kind of works is I'm gonna look at the patch, look at the difference, and I'm gonna start slicing it off into hunks, maybe rolling it into the prior patches. I'm going to probably add some documentation, clean up a couple of things. I'll do that over the next 15 minutes, I guess. What's the next big cleanup-ish modernization thing after ESMification? That's a good question. There's been a lot of interest in TypeScript. I mean, this whole pathing thing is a real pain in the butt. You know, resource paths, Chrome paths, they're very arcane and they confuse people. And there's this notion of making it so that you can just have it be a proper reflection. Like, instead of, we can have a new scheme that maps closer to what exists in the source directory, and that's easier in general to work with, and will make it easier to not have to do the stuff we just did. Because ultimately all of the stuff that we're doing that I just did is like interpolating special URIs. Like I'm doing replacement of a special URI to map to a place on a disk. I'm basically like recreating the resource protocol handler, so that, you know, using a regex basically to repath things, and that's silly. And so that's one, is making the paths work better. There's interest in TypeScript. What other? There's a lot of like linting stuff that we've been turning on, various linting rules. Getting the Fluent conversion done is important. I want to get the new tab code base off of Sass, or it was using SCSS, I think is what it's called. And there's no, now that we have like native CSS nesting, I don't think that's necessary at all anymore. And so we can get rid of part of that build step. We have too many copies of React in the code base. We should probably reduce to have a single copy, unified copy for all the parts of the code base that need to use React. So like we have a copy for Pocket, for the dev tools, for new tab, for about welcome, and they should all have a shared copy, I think. I think those are the big ones off the top of my head. I don't know if that answers your question. All right, now the other one we need to do is new tab. This one might be the most annoying. Let's see. All right, plugin. Dir name. I think it's just dir name. For new tab. And then, well, let's see if we can get away with that. Mock run tests in new tab. Might explode. Yes. Oh, because, right. Tuple, or array of tuples. Am I in the wrong one? This resource path exits. Oh, right. Had the wrong property name. No such file or directory. Browser components. New tab. Okay, so I need to add a slash. Hilarious. So path join. Yay, it's working. Okay, that's new tab. And then I need to make sure that the bundling works. So, system add-on v2 something. What's it called? New tab. There it is. That's migration. New tab, new tab, new tab, new tab. Webpack system add-on. Plugin. Okay. I'm just gonna do this. Now will you bundle? Run bundle. Yes, it did. Yes, we can. Oh, yeah. Danny Colin is calling it reusable components. Yes, there is a nascent effort. I say nascent like it's new, but we've been doing this for over a year now. There's a team of people dedicated to building chunks of our UI as reusable components. And that's a really wonderful engineering, like architectural project. It's a long duration one. And the nice thing about it is it should produce like Lego bricks of UI to make it easier for us to like assemble chunks of UI in a consistent way. So, it's unfortunate, but if you launch, if you launch Firefox and you look around, I'm just going to pick on my favorite example. If you go to like settings, there's a search input here, like certificate. There's a search input here. If you go to, I don't know, what's another, logins. There's a search input here, and these things are completely independent of one another. Like, where's the X? They're the same idea. It's a filter, a search filter, but this one has an icon, this one doesn't. This one has an X to clear, this one doesn't. And that makes us inconsistent. And it also means that we had to rebuild this. We had to create one of these from scratch. It's not that difficult to create a search input like that, but to maintain it is a cost. And so if we can create some of these things once, we don't have to we can be consistent. We can make sure that they're consistently accessible. That's another benefit. And consistent behaviorally and in appearance. And then there's one less thing to have to maintain. So there's a whole team working on, here, check this out. Desktop components. I don't know when the last time, because I think this gets pushed to manually. But this is our storybook, which is like a gallery of components. And you can see, some of them are just basic things, like a button group, a group of buttons, such that on Windows, it's logic for the order of buttons, so that the primary on Mac OS and Linux is on the right, and the primary action on Windows is on the left, because that's platform. That's kind of like the platform convention. Then there's the notion of a card. Some of these cards are expandable. Some of them have a label and then some content. There's a star rating mechanism. Now, I'm viewing this in dark mode, and I'm also viewing it on the web. So there are certain color properties that we don't get by default when we're looking at the storybook here. But this is hopefully illustrative. Labels with checkboxes and keyboard shortcuts. Message bars is an important one. So, these sorts of things show up, have a close button, close action. Some of them are not closable. Some of them have an icon, informational message, and then a button. Some of them have a support link. And these are now nice reusable components. Panelists are handy. These sorts of things, these pop-ups for settings and passwords. Unfortunately, before there were that reusable component existed, we had to invent these for each page. There wasn't like a shared library of UI. So like About Add-ons had its own internal like list. This implementation is distinct from this one. Real silly. So now we've got a shared notion of a panel list that can be used across contexts, which is really nice. One of the things I love about this is how we developed the migration wizard. And that meant by doing it this way, we made sure that the migration wizard could be rendered in web content as well as in like dialogues and stuff. And we got a nice decoupling of behavior from presentation, and it made it easier to sort of like test the different sort of states of the migration wizard without having to actually do migrations, which was nice. Because like the migration wizard can be in many different states. And this allowed us to sort of like see it in each of these states, which is very nice indeed. Okay, so I've got the all of the tests working. I think I need to just run the new tab test, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to amend. And then I need to take a look at this set of changes as a whole and start splitting it up. And I think I'm going to do that off of stream. But effectively, I'm going to probably split out the changes I made for the resource URI. What was it? That resource path thing. Where is the change I made? Here. I'm going to split out this change, resource URI plugin, and all of the subsequent changes to all of the like Karma configuration and the Webpack configuration and stuff. And then all of the imports, I'm going to try and fold them back into the places where I updated the JSMs, the individual JSMs. And I think that should do it. And then I can post this up for review and get some feedback. Yeah, that's my plan. Hey, we did it, gang. We got the tests working at least. Oh yeah, Danny Coleman makes a good point. If you have a local checkout of Mozilla Central and you're feeling confident, you can run mock Storybook, and that will build the latest Storybook set of components and then launch Storybook locally. And this has all of the colors properly set up. Like this is how we normally use Storybook. And I think there are some like, I don't know if we've, there's some extras in here. Yeah, but we get the colors at least. I don't know if there were tabs are in here, but I think tabs were in the other list as well. Primary buttons, ghost buttons, small buttons. Yeah. Anyway, it's worth checking out. Storybook. And there's like documentation on here on how to use Zool and HTML. We're slowly moving away from Zool. Sometimes we have to mix the two, but we're trying to use like all of the stuff we're looking at here is in HTML, and we're trying to use that only. But there are certain places where we kind of have to use Zool. We're tightening up our typography, and we periodically will use lit, which is a very sort of thin wrapper around web components that makes it easy to batch changes of state into efficient updates to the DOM. It's very nice. Anyways, thanks for watching, gang. Thanks for watching episode 354. I hope that was interesting. I'm just going to write an update. We did it! Got the tests all running. And we're going to call it there. Just need to clean up the patch and split it up into absorptions into the prior patches and a new patch for the resource URI plugin changes. Excuse me. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed this stream or if you've got feedback about it, there's a link in the agenda here to rate this episode. I read everything that comes in. Oh, thank you, Isam, MN, and Jimbo2150. I'm glad you enjoyed the streams. If you want to provide some feedback, here's a rate this episode link. There's a form here where you can provide feedback. If you have questions, I can try and answer them on the next stream. You know, about anything I did or about Mozilla or Firefox, I can do my best to try and answer them on the next stream. I read everything that comes in, so let me know what you thought. And I'll see you at the next one. So have yourselves a great week, everybody. Take care, and bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
Oh, and check out, if you're in the United States, check out Mozilla Monitor Plus. This is not a sponsored, this is not sponsored content, but like, there's a new service that just launched yesterday called Mozilla Monitor Plus, and if it's available for you if you're in the United States, and it can help you scrub your data from data brokers who are selling it online. It can help scrub that from the internet. Check it out, Mozilla Monitor Plus, if you're in the United States. All right, thanks all. Bye-bye.